you ever sat in silence, thinking about the words you've spoken over the years? The things you've said to your children, the advice, the lessons, the moments of frustration, the words of love. And maybe, just maybe, you wondered, did I say the right things? Did I say too much? As we get older, we feel an urgency to make sure our children are prepared for life without us. That's natural. We want to leave them with wisdom, guidance, and a sense of security. But here's something people don't talk about enough. There are things you should not say before you go. Words that, even with the best intentions, could leave a burden instead of blessing. So today, we're going to have an honest conversation. This isn't about regret. It's about making sure that the words we leave behind bring comfort, not confusion. Love, not guilt. Peace, not pressure. Because at the end of the day, the most precious gift we can leave our children isn't money, isn't possessions. It's the way they feel when they remember us. Let's start with something that many parents say, sometimes without even thinking about it. I just want you to be happy. Sounds innocent, right? After all, what parent wouldn't want their child to be happy? But here's the problem. Happiness is a moving target. It's not a final destination. And when we tell our children, I just want you to be happy, they may hear something entirely different. They may hear, if I'm not happy, I'm failing. Or worse, I can't come to you with my struggles because you only want to hear good news. Think about it. Life is full of ups and downs. Struggles, disappointments, challenges. That's just part of being human. But if our children feel that our final wish for them is to always be happy, they may feel pressure to hide their pain, to pretend everything is okay, even when it's not. Instead, let's give them something more powerful. Let's tell them, I want you to live a life that feels meaningful to you. I want you to have the strength to face challenges, the courage to chase what matters, and the wisdom to know that even on the hardest days, you are never alone. Doesn't that feel better? Doesn't that feel real? Because happiness comes and goes. But meaning, resilience, and love, those are the things that truly matter. Now, there's another phrase we might be tempted to say, especially as we get older. Promise me you'll take care of a specific person, the house, the family business. It comes from a place of love, a place of wanting to keep things intact, of making sure that the people we care about are looked after. But here's the hard truth. When we ask for promises like this, we may be placing a weight on our children that they never asked to carry. Life changes. Circumstances shift. What if they can't fulfill that promise? What if taking care of that person, that house, that business, becomes a burden they cannot sustain? Will they live with guilt? With resentment? Instead, let's offer them something else. Let's tell them, I trust you to make the best decisions for your life and for the people you love. I want you to do what feels right, not out of obligation, but out of love. Because love is not a contract. It's not a checklist. It's a living, breathing thing that changes with time. And the last thing we want is for our final words to become a source of stress instead of comfort. So as we continue this conversation, let's think deeply about the words we choose. Because the words we leave behind, they will echo in our children's hearts long after we are gone. And we want those echoes to bring peace, not pressure. Love, not expectation. We've already talked about how certain words, like, I just want you to be happy, or asking for promises, can unintentionally place pressure on our children. But there's something else we need to be mindful of, the way we talk about money, inheritance, and our final wishes. Many parents feel the need to tell their children exactly how their assets will be divided. Sometimes this comes from a place of fairness, wanting to make sure everyone gets their share. Other times, it comes from trying to avoid conflict. But here's something that may surprise you. Talking too much about money before you go can actually create more problems than it solves. Imagine this. You sit your children down and explain, when I'm gone, your brother will get the house, you'll get the savings, and your sister will get the jewelry. You think you're making things clear, avoiding misunderstandings. But what if your children feel resentment? What if one of them expected something different? What if they don't agree with your decision, but they feel guilty bringing it up? Or worse, what if they start worrying about it before you're even gone? Suddenly, a conversation that was meant to bring peace becomes a source of silent tension. Siblings may start looking at each other differently. Unspoken feelings of unfairness may grow. Instead of focusing on the time they still have with you, they may start focusing on who gets what after you're gone. So what's the better approach? Instead of telling them exactly how things will be divided, focus on the bigger message. I've made arrangements that I feel are fair, and I trust you all to support each other. If necessary, put everything in writing through a will or legal document, so there are no surprises. But don't let money be the thing that defines your final conversations. Because the truth is, the greatest inheritance we can leave our children isn't money. It's the lessons we taught them, the love we shared, the way we made them feel, asterisk, asterisk. Now, there's another thing many parents feel tempted to say, especially as they get older. I regret so much in my life. This one is tough, because as we reach a certain age, it's natural to reflect on our past. There may be things we wish we had done differently, choices we made, opportunities we missed, people we may have hurt. And sometimes we feel the need to confess these regrets to our children, almost as if we're seeking closure. But here's the problem. When we share our regrets too heavily, our children may start carrying them as their own. Imagine you tell your son, I wish I had been around more when you were young. I regret not spending more time with you. While you may be hoping for a moment of connection, he may instead walk away with guilt, thinking, did I miss out on something? Was I not enough? Should I have done more to bring us closer? Or maybe you tell your daughter, I should have never sold that family property. I made a terrible mistake. Now, instead of feeling at peace with the present, she may feel weighed down by a past she had no control over. So what should we say instead? Instead of dwelling on regret, focus on gratitude and wisdom. If you feel the need to reflect, say something like, I've learned a lot in my life, and if there's one thing I know for sure, it's that love matters more than anything. I hope you always remember that. Or, looking back, I see things I could have done differently, but I also see the beautiful life I've had, and I wouldn't trade that for anything. Because here's the truth. We don't want our children to carry our regrets. We want them to carry our love, our laughter, and the lessons we've learned along the way. Asterisk, asterisk. Let's continue this conversation and talk about another phrase we should avoid, one that might seem loving but can actually be painful for our children to hear. We've already talked about how discussing money too openly or sharing deep regrets can unintentionally place a burden on our children. Now, let's talk about something that might seem harmless, even loving, but can actually be one of the most difficult things for them to hear. It's the phrase, I don't want to be a burden to you. Many parents say this with the best of intentions. You don't want your children to feel obligated to take care of you. You want them to live their lives, be happy, and not worry too much about you. But here's something that might surprise you. Telling your children that you don't want to be a burden can actually make them feel even more burdened. Why? Because what they hear isn't just, I want you to live your life. What they might hear is, I don't want you to help me. Or worse, I don't think I'm worth the effort. Think about it this way. If your child was sick, struggling, or needed you, would you ever think of them as a burden? Of course not. You'd help them without a second thought, because that's what love does. But when you say you don't want to be a burden, your child might feel like they're not allowed to help you, even if they want to. And the truth is, as we age, we will need help sometimes. That's just a part of life. But needing help isn't the same as being a burden. So instead of saying, I don't want to be a burden, try saying, I appreciate everything you do for me, and I'm grateful to have you in my life. Or, I know life gets busy, and I don't expect you to do everything, but I love knowing I can count on you. This way, your child doesn't feel pressure, but they also don't feel shut out. They know they can be there for you in a way that feels natural and loving, not like an obligation. Now, there's one more phrase we need to talk about, one that's especially painful for children to hear, no matter how old they are. And that's when I'm gone. I just want you to move on and forget about me. You might think this is a kind thing to say. You want your children to be happy, not to dwell on loss, not to feel stuck in grief. But here's what you may not realize. Telling your children to move on can make them feel like they're not allowed to miss you. Grief is a natural part of love. And when we lose someone we love, we don't move on from them. We carry them with us, in our hearts, in our memories, in the stories we tell, and the values we live by. So instead of saying, move on and forget about me. Say something like, I want you to keep living, keep laughing, and keep making beautiful memories. And I hope every now and then you smile when you think of me. Or, I will always be with you, no matter what. Not in a sad way, but in a way that reminds you of how much I love you. This way, you're giving your children permission to grieve while also giving them permission to be happy. Because that's what we all want for our loved ones. Not to be forgotten, but to be remembered with love without pain. Now, let's wrap up this conversation with a final thought. One that can help bring peace, closure, and love into every word we share. At the end of the day, the words we leave with our children will stay with them for the rest of their lives. And that's why it's so important to choose them carefully, not out of fear, but out of love. We've talked about money, regrets, burdens, and the fear of being forgotten. But there's one more thing we need to talk about, something that can bring peace, closure, and love into every conversation we have. And that's, I have nothing more to say. Some parents, as they get older, pull away from deep conversations. They don't want to bring up difficult topics. They assume their children already know how they feel. And sometimes, they just don't know what else to say. But here's the truth. There is always something more to say. Even if you've said, I love you 100 times, say it again. Even if you think they already know you're proud of them, tell them again. Even if you've apologized for past mistakes, remind them that you meant it. Because when the time comes, your children won't be wishing for more money or fewer worries or a cleaner inheritance. They'll be wishing for one more conversation with you. So don't wait. Say what's in your heart now. If you're proud of them, tell them. If you're sorry for something, say it. If you want them to remember something important, make sure they hear it from you. Because in the end, the best gift you can leave your children isn't money or property or a perfect goodbye. It's the certainty that they were loved. And that's something they will carry with them forever. So as you go on with your day, take a moment to think, what's one thing I want to say to my child right now? And then say it, because words matter. And love, when spoken, lasts forever.